Do you think I could start one time without saying, you are live? It's because I get that notification that I'm live. So today we have a really great topic, kind of like last week, where we're going to talk about today, do you create drama? Are you the drama queen, king, fest person? Is there a universal term for that? Hey, Doug. So are you the person that creates drama in your world? Do you have a dramatic life? It's funny, I've had people say to me, and when I've been in shows, that I'm very quiet. I know it might not seem like it, but when I'm rehearsing, like when I'm not on stage or whatever, I'm very quiet. I'm studying, writing, like, I'm very engaged in the work, and I'm just and then I've had people say to me that don't know me, if I enter, when you first get into a show, whatever, you don't know each other very well. And I've had many directors say to me, you're so quiet until you get on stage. I'm ready. So, which is why in personality tests, I'm always like right on the edge between extrovert and introvert. I think they've had new tests now where you can be a sensitive extrovert or something like that. So, because I can perform, so it makes me extroverted. But in my daily world, I can be alone, like no problem. And like in groups and stuff, I'm often. So anyway, studying? What? So good to see you. So do you create drama? This is a really interesting topic to me. And as always, we want to look at this in a couple of different ways. We're going to give you like the traits of people that create drama in this world, that basically go through their life creating drama. And if you find these are familiar to you, it's you, not me. So if you find that some of these traits are like, oh, I do that, it's an interesting thing, because we want to look at this as, in order to be aware of these things, the look method, right? You want to look at your life, and then by looking at your life, you can make changes that you want to make in terms of, what you want your life to be. But you can't make those changes unless you look at what's going on. So that's what we call the look method. It's very simple. It's that you want to, look with love and be open to opportunity, and then kick whatever it is to the curb. That's my acronym. So when you look at the things in your life and discover that there's things that you don't like, what can you do about it to change it? So that's what we're always trying to do. The other thing that happens as writers and as readers who help writers is that as you look at these traits, hello from Texas, well, howdy. As you look at these traits, you can also apply these to your characters. And the great thing about today is that there'll be a lot of how these traits manifest externally. So there's a lot going on internally, but I'm going to give you the ways that this manifests externally, which makes it very easy then to apply it to characters in a screenplay. So when you want to create a conflict or a dramatic character, these are traits you can put onto a character that then create drama. These are traits that when you do in your life, create drama. So this is a really good one in terms of, it's one of the most tangible ones in terms of how to apply it to your life as well as your screenplay. Hey, guy. So beginning number one of my faves right out the gate is that rolling your eyes. When people like, it's a dramatic thing because it's so dismissive. You're dismissing the person that you're talking to. And it can be, it's very insulting. And in romantic relationships, it's often one of the things that you see when a couple is struggling. Like one of them's like, it can be very subtle, or it can be like, your whole body. When you want a character that's dramatic, just give them a few eye rolls. Eye rolls, and you can put your whole back into it. It can be like a whole thing. Like, it can be very dramatic, and it can be very subtle digs. So the eye roll, if you find that you're eye rolling, because it's a judgment. When you're eye rolling, you're judging someone for being like not so cool or whatever. So when you or whatever, I just did that. So this is whenever we're looking at these ones that have traits, like it turns into a confessional. So This is one that you can give to characters when you want them to be disrespectful or you want them to create drama. Have them do a bit of eye rolling as a way to get that across. And then kind of second cousin, these are all like in the same family basically, but is the idea of taking someone's spot. And this happens in a lot of different ways. You cut someone off. Like that's why people have like, their space that they exist in. And when someone infringes on that space, depending on the person, they can react in a lot of different ways. So people that create drama infringe on other people's space by taking their spot, by they get up and they sit in their chair. Oh, is the seat taken? There's nothing there, there's drama that's created when there's a busy restaurant or something, and someone's standing waiting for someone to finish their meal. You ever seen that kind of tension that happens? Because they're just waiting for the spot. Sometimes the people in the spot will slow down. I've seen this so many times, right? You can see they start to slow down and take their time because they're annoyed that someone's waiting. Some people, it makes them hurry up. It's really interesting. And so it can be, sometimes you can hold a space for another person. So another, well, this is a little bit different, but in an airline, so an airline runs out of seats, someone took your spot, and the person you're annoyed that someone took your spot, and the airline hostess or host, whoever, is standing there telling you, oh, well, you can't get on the plane because the last seat is taken and we're gonna have to put you on another plane. There's a couple of different ways, and one is that the person telling you the news might just be like, resting face of like, you're not getting past me, sorry, go sit down. Or it might be the holding space for how bad you feel, but it's not going to change the outcome. Like, I'm so sorry. Like, I know that you're feeling really bad, but there's really nothing I can do. Both people are saying no, but they're saying no in very different ways, right? And so if someone in that instance had come in between the person in line and taken that spot, woo, drama, right? So this idea of taking people's spot, another thing that kind of goes into this thing is interrupting. So this is a similar, it's manifesting in a different way, but when you interrupt someone all the time, you're taking the spot that they had of the point they were trying to make or the story that we're trying to make. And I interrupt myself. When I started doing these lives, I realized how much I interrupt myself because I just get excited, and I interrupt other people because I get excited. And this is definitely something that I work on all the time because I know that I do this. And so it's really, because I can see how annoying that is, but it's out of excitement and love. But it is like, it's not a good quality. So it's something that I really work on in myself to try to listen. And I mean, I do love listening to people and hearing what their perspectives are and weighing perspectives and that kind of thing. But if you want to create someone who really creates a lot of drama, don't let them, like, they will not make it so that they don't let someone else get a word in edgewise. So that is like a way to create a very dramatic character, is that they just will not stop interrupting because they're just so forward thinking in their head. And so, well, they're either forward thinking or they're thinking about themselves and what they want to accomplish for themselves. And it's like, they're only hearing what they want to say next. They're not even hearing what you're saying. So a lack of listening is again another quality of taking that person's spot or taking their power away by doing that. Jumping to conclusions is such a great one. I loved just last week, and I was catching up on Schitt's Creek. I just love that show. And he says, I have bad news. And his mom says, the wedding's off. So great. And he's like, no. Why would the wedding be off? Like this, and so it creates great drama and comedy, right? Jumping to conclusions is a great one for comedy. Zach Galifianakis does this really well. Like, he jumps to conclusions all the time as a character, and he comes to a conclusion that no one else would come to. And so that makes him, especially in The Hangover, he does it all the time. And it's so hilarious because he goes, I know what you mean. And then he says what he thinks it is, and it's nothing. Like, and everybody else is like, what? I mean, it's such a great one. So jumping to conclusions is a really great way to create drama, especially when you jump to the wrong conclusion. I mean, that is the way you create conflict and comedy for sure. When you jump to the wrong conclusion, it can be comedy, and it can be drama too. It's far more used in comedy. Giving unsolicited advice and backhanded compliments. This is great for characters. Unsolicited advice is, we talked about last week, in terms of being a control freak. Control freaks are trying to control everything. So they'll constantly give unsolicited advice, and they'll be like, oh, you know what you should do. They start things like that. Oh, if I were you, those kinds of ... statements. If you find that you're doing that a lot, just think that you might be creating a little drama in your life because nobody asked you. It might not be that they want that opinion. So being able to give, wait until someone asks your opinion, or, offer up that you have an idea and do they want to hear it, right? So being able to do that. And then the whole backhanded compliment is such an art, and it's such a beautiful tool when you're writing great characters. The backhanded compliment of like, oh, wow, you really pull that off. I don't think I could wear that. It's like, oh, wait. Or one of my favorite things is when you're acting and someone says, how'd you know all those lines? Because that's such a small part of it. Or in musician world where they say, oh, what kind of guitar? What's your equipment? That kind of thing. So it's like, there's some interest in that, but often people will say that because they don't want to say your playing wasn't very good. So instead they'll ask you what guitar you use. So this sort of backhanded compliment, oh, cool guitar, is like a weird, being able to be like, oh yeah, you wouldn't think that those colors go together, but it works on you. These kind of backhanded weird compliments are really great to create interesting characters. And if you find that it's basically, you can't say something nice, so you say something that's sort of weird. And so it really can create some really great conflict and drama in screenplays. And then it's something to consider, if you find yourself doing it, whether or not you want to be doing that. Perfecting insincerity and playing the victim. Playing the victim kind of goes with the eye roll. And so people that play the victim, we talked about this last week with whether or not you're a control freak or a doormat, but the idea that you say things like, I have to, you made me, you won't let me do that. Well, I would do that, but you won't let me. And you see this in couples quite well. He won't let me. And it's like, unless it's an abusive relationship, and that's a whole nother conversation. It's like the idea that someone won't let you do something is like, you're a grown adult, you're making a choice, and then you're blaming them for the choice that you're making. So if you find that you're using language all the time, like I have to, and they won't let me, and I can't do this. And so playing the victim, and then the insincerity kind of goes with that, because sometimes it's like, I would love to do that, but they won't let me. Like, it's a really weird, like, oh, I would just love to help you, but I can't because, I'm too busy because my job just won't let me out of it. And it's like, really? Because if you really wanted to do that thing, then you'd probably make it work. So it is like this sort of lack of sincerity, and the idea that you're a victim to the world. Those are really great ways to create drama. And playing the victim is a really great way to create drama because it's so often passive aggressive, and it can be very engaging because it's so different. And so, people that like take too long with things, that's another passive aggressive move of like, they're never ready on time. They're like always like 5 steps behind, so you have to wait for them to catch up. Like, these are passive aggressive moves that are so classic and really great tools for a character, where someone's in the movie, again, it's Zach Galifianakis, Due Date. Robert Downey Jr. is in a hurry, and he's constantly having to stop to wait for him. And that's a really funny bit, right? So it's such a passive aggressive way of controlling someone, is to make them wait for you. Also recreating their dramatic childhood. And this is something we often do in couples. So it's like, you get to know often you are attracted to the people that are familiar, whether you know it or not. They're familiar to whatever thing was playing out in your childhood, and then you can't figure out why you're in this relationship that's not working, because you then just recreated something that didn't work in the first place. So this is a really great thing that people do. And there's also this, we could do a whole thing, and we should do a whole thing on the double bind, which is your rock and a hard place scenarios, where someone says to you, you're basically damned if you do, damned if you don't kind of scenarios. And so that can also be happening within this whole recreate your childhood thing, because it's like, in order to get away from that, you have to step into something that's unfamiliar, which can be really scary, which is really great for a character that you're creating, right? To create something that they're really afraid to do because it's so unfamiliar. even if that thing that they're about to do is the very thing they need to do. Like what Bobby Moresco said, what's in the way becomes the way. So finding that thing is the big obstacle, and then that becomes the salvation of getting out of the situation. So also gossip. Gossip is such a great one because it's such a huge way to create drama, to create characters. And it happens in many ways, and it can be nasty and mean. It can also be complimentary, but it still can be kind of odd, and there's so many ways that you can use gossip in a screenplay that works really, really well, especially, it's used in big ways. They used it great in Notting Hill, where she's talking about Hugh Grant's character and doesn't know that he's listening. And then later she explains, you think I'm going to tell this person my personal life? Absolutely not. I'm going to gossip instead. She's making a choice that's really a value of loyalty to him, but it comes across as being a value of disloyalty. Really great. That's one of the things that makes that movie so great, is one, the side characters are awesome in that film. And just there's a lot of their values between the two characters are the same. That's why they fall in love with each other, but their lives are drastically different. And so that's a really fun romantic comedy when values, that's basically often what will attract people to each other, is they have similar values. Often that is, though, sometimes when we get into relationships, we don't talk about our values. We don't talk about our values in this world in general, which is really interesting. So that can be something that really trips us up. We're going to talk about that a little bit more in a second. But basically, the final one, which is my fave, I think, save the best for last, is just, what? Just, oh my God, reacting to everything. It's all just too much. Are you kidding me? You can't be serious. What are you talking about? Come on, man, woman. These reacting to things. And when you have people in your life that just kind of overreact to everything, they're fascinating to me, but they also can create so much drama that they can really undermine things. And sometimes it's it's a Michael Keaton double take. He's the king of double take. So being able to react to things, emojis, the fact that we needed to even come up with the emojis was so that people could react to stuff. It's so great. And it's such a good one for characters, because it can jump to all these other ones in terms of overreacting, rolling your eyes, jumping to conclusions, taking someone's spot. This kind of encompasses so many things, overreacting to things. So if you find, we do have a handout today, which you can get at hollywoodgatekeepers.net or com/free look. And so you can download the handout. It has these traits, and then it also has these, if you're a recovering instigator and you find these traits about yourself, what can you do to sort of mitigate them? So we want to mitigate them in your life. We want to heighten them in your screenplays. So it's such a good one in terms of, these are the things that we don't necessarily, behaviors that we work on as people, but that we really shine, and point a light at as characters, because it makes people relate to them, because they're so human and they come in all different forms, and we kind of all do some form of them in some scenarios. I don't think I know anyone that doesn't do some of these sometimes. It's not like, it's the people that when you think of people that wreak havoc in your life, they do. Wow. I can immediately think of someone that does pretty much all of these. And so it's well, you just want to stay away. I want to stay away from that person, because they do, in my world, they do this thing, all of these things. Partly it pushes my buttons, which is why I see them. It doesn't necessarily mean that they do all of these all the time, but I've pegged them that way now. So I'm going to react to them in that way, which is really interesting. So when you really think about discovering your values, that's the first place to start. If you are doing some of these things, if you're overreacting, or you find that you're saying, I have to, you need to look at what your values are. If you feel like you have to do things all the time, then there's something amiss in what you're doing every day and how it lines up with your values of what you want to be doing every day. So if that's happening, you need to look at what's the value there. So if you find that you have to do that, maybe you do have to do that. Maybe you do have to go to a job you don't necessarily love, but then the value of that job is creating security in your life. So if you can switch the value to it, you might not feel the eye roll, I have to, as much. So being really keyed into what are the values that you value every day. And it's interesting, and what I was saying earlier in that romantic comedy is people's values line up, and that's what gets them together. Often that's true in life, but I think also one of the main things of why couples, like relationships, don't work out is that no one talked about their values from the start. They just sort of assume that you have values. This happens in corporations as well. People hire people and then say, here's our values, and expect you to work towards those values. But if this person does not have those values, it's really hard to act in your life for someone else's values. It's pretty much impossible to take on someone else's values. You have to really own it for yourself. Now you can meet someone and they can say a value that they love, and you can be like, oh, and you can kind of work towards that. But if you don't inherently have it, it takes some effort to do it. And when we do this in a job where we tell you, here's our values, you better live up to them, it's a constant struggle if you don't already have that. Really what that job should be doing is saying, what are your values? And then hiring the people that already align with it. Then you're at least starting from the same spot. So if you find that you're doing these things and you're struggling with this stuff, it's really about looking at what your values and what's not aligning. And you can do that also by sort of zooming out. So, and we just did an Instagram Live where I talked about this, where my coach, Annie Lala, she did this kind of explanation where you're walking on the ground and the ground is black, and then it's painted black and it's painted white. And you're walking, you don't really realize where you're stepping. Just like in life, sometimes we're in the shadows and sometimes we're in the light. Sometimes things are hard and sometimes things are easy. Well, when you zoom out and you kind of look at your life, you can see, and maybe you can zoom out and see that actually you're walking on the painted sign of a yin yang. So you're walking on this yin yang sign, not realizing that that's the bigger picture. Instead, you're only seeing the black part that you're walking on there, or the white part you're walking on. You're only seeing the darkness and the light. You're not seeing the whole big picture. So if you can zoom out in your life and be like, okay, I'm behaving like this and this is happening and I'm stressed out. And if you can zoom out and be like, what's going on, and kind of disassociate, take a step aside, look at your life, the look method, and say, oh, what's happening here? And take a gander, fly by, and look at it. If you can look at the lives of the screenplays, this is why you want to do live readings. This is why you want to walk away from it and come back and read it, because you can get a bigger bird's eye view of what's happening. By doing that, then you can see where are the sticky spots. And then don't say things about people that you wouldn't say to them, and don't send nasty emails. Basically, have conversations with the idea of, could you CC the person you're talking about, and they would be okay with it. And we talked about this on Instagram too, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you can never say anything, negative about someone, because sometimes you're having struggles with somebody. And so you enlist the help of a friend and you talk through it. That's much different, because you're trying to maneuver the relationship and make it better ultimately. So you might even complain about your loved one or whoever because you're frustrated in this moment. But that's much different than gossiping or just being mean about people or judging and that kind of thing. And sending emails, definitely mocking people and that kind of stuff, that kind of thing can really come back to bite you as well. So it's really about, by doing this, if you're always sort of striving to be the best person that you can be, we all have, obviously, we do things we're not so proud of. I hate that I interrupt people. I know that that's a thing that I'm working on. It's like we have, and I have many, many more. We all have our things, right? So it's like we are works in progress. So we do our best to be the best that we can be. But if you're just striving for that, and really taking a look at the company you keep, because that's kind of the biggest indication of where you live in your brain, is by the people that you hang out with most. You are a conglomeration of the 5 people that you hang out with or listen to most. And so if you find that you're constantly judging other people and bitching about other people and complaining and moaning, it's like, that's something to look at then. So these are ways that you can look at, but they're also really great for screenplays, right? If you want to create a character like that, they all should be sort of reflecting each other if they're people that hang out all the time. So it is like, that's what makes ensemble casts work so well. That's why Friends works so well, because they are all sort of a conglomerate of each other. You see how they influence each other. You see how they come together. They're very different 6 people, but they really integrate with each other. There's So Many Blackish is another great one where they're just so integrated with each other. And yet very different experiences for each character. So this is something to really look at when you write, if you write any kind of piece about families or ensembles or, groups of people that come together. This happens more in series television or series episodic than it does in films, but it definitely is, a film like The Breakfast Club, a film, even like a film like Get Out, even though it's a horror genre, it's still like there's family based, and there's so many great messages in there and so many great things that are being explored. But it is like, how are they reflecting each other as they maneuver within this scenario? So these are really, fun things to look at. We are really diving into how to create screenplays and how to do this in screenplays, because we're also in the process of, we're going to be opening up our finished course. We've only had it in beta, and so we're finally opening it up for the first time. So it's about how to finish your screenplay. And so we're doing some training sessions, some free training sessions that are actually about how to get your script to the screen. What are the common things as a reader that I have seen over and over again? They're both mistakes in the screenplay, as well as some surprising things that writers do once they finally get in a room that prevents their screenplay from moving forward. So if you want to join us for those, you can go to hollywoodgatekeepers.com/script to screen, because we want to help you get your script on the screen. So maybe I can write that out. So, or you guys can put it in the chat, hollywoodgatekeepers.net/script to screen. And so, I'll write it in there. What we're going to be covering is all of the ways that screenplays get stuck, from the very beginning to from the very beginning of coming up with ideas to the very end of having meetings. And so we're going to do that on Saturday at noon. And you can join us in there. It's totally free. And I'm really looking forward to it. This is a whole new thing that we're doing, and I'm very, very excited. Can't type and talk at the same time. It's so dramatic. Hollywood? No, not Hollywood. Hold on. There we go. Script. I wrote script to talk. Okay. Now we got it. She says with confidence. All right. Keepers.net, script to screen. There it is. So for a minute, I thought I had 3 O's. So hollywoodgatekeepers.com or net /script to screen. And you can join us on Saturday at noon. It's going to be really fun. And we're going to talk about what are the things that stick a screenplay and make it so that it doesn't get to the screen. And so as we do these conversations about drama and doormats and control freaks and all of that, these are great ways to present authentic characters, which is one of the great ways to get your script to the screen. And so we're going to talk about some of that to do with story, but also some of that to do both with things in screenplays and then things with writers. I really feel like as a script consultant, I've helped shaped many, many screenplays, rewrites, and script doctoring, all that. And then as a coach and life coach, certified life coach, it's about the writer. So it's really about helping both the screenplay get to a place it needs to be and helping the writer get to a place where they need to be, which is the bigger battle. So we will see you, hopefully we'll see you there on Saturday. Otherwise, we will see you next week, right? We'll see you then. We'll be back next week, right? Yeah, okay. I know what I'm doing. I got this. All right, so I'm gonna go interrupt people. Kidding. All right, we'll see you next time. Bye, guys.